I kind of want to do a Christmas video, but I can't think of a great Christmas-related topic, so I'm hoping an ice-wielding stand user suffices. There are a lot of colorful characters to choose from in the Jojo ensemble, making narrowing down a favorite a Herculean task between badass school scrappers, immortal vampires, noble gang leaders. Who would have thought my favorite in its long history would be one angry, icy boy? Ghiaccio is one of many episodic stand users in my personal favorite part of Jojo, Vento Oero, and yet he has utterly captured my heart to the point that my geeky tush cosplayed him once. For a character who is present for just a single battle, I feel Ghiaccio not only leaves a gargantuan lasting impression, but he stands as an emblem of what makes JoJo's Bizarre Adventure so special. Bear with me here. Ghiaccio is a member of the Squadra, the lowest rung of the Passione Mafia with the dirtiest work to carry out. That of assassinations, for which they get paid barely pennies by their oppressive superiors. Contrary to most JoJo parts and their respective stand users of the week that the heroes have to pick off, you can feel a camaraderie between La Squadra and the injustice they're forced to endure. Relationships are a big theme in Part 5, and the brotherhood between the heroes isn't exclusive to just them, as almost every villain along the way has some close relationship. The members of La Squadra may be ruthless hitmen, but their bonds are palpable, from Risotto vowing to avenge their deaths, Pesci and Prosciutto's heartbreaking story of teacher and student, and most relevantly, the conviction and rage Ghiaccio is thrown into when he hears Malone die in the middle of a phone call with him, victim to a trap set by Giorno. It's this that spurns Ghiaccio to follow Giorno and Mista to Venezia, where he gives chase with his stand, White Album, and I feel it's here Ghiaccio begins to be emblematic of how JoJo has progressed over the years. In Part 3, the first lineup of stand abilities are pretty easy to understand. Star Platinum punches good, the world stops time, and most relevantly, there's a stand called Horus, wielded by Pet Shop, that creates and throws icicles. But by Part 5, Araki's creativity has really flourished, as powers got more complicated and gave JoJo its distinct identity for being incredibly cerebral and tactical in a super appealing way. I bring up Horus in particular because White Album, by comparison, is the perfect way to show how stands have gotten more technical, as White Album does not merely create or throw ice, it lowers the temperature around Ghiaccio to the point that oxygen around him freezes and forms an armor of ice. This is very specific, and the line of thinking makes the details of battle far more interesting, as the rules and physics of White Album clash with those of Golden Experience and Sex Pistols. So let me rewind a little for sake of context. Hirohiko Araki wrote JoJo at first as a somewhat standard shonen. As standard as shonen can be under his characteristic point of view, I suppose. But at the end of the day, it was still bad guy punches good guy punches bad guy. When Part 2 ended with Joseph overcoming Cars, an unkillable ultimate life form, a question stood in the way of what could happen next. When you've overcome the likes of the Immortal and Pinnacle, how can readers sweat for the heroes moving forward? This is what led to the creation of stands, which would become JoJo's trademark distinction in a sea of shonen series. To say a stand is a superpower is putting it simply. They range from fighting abilities like super strength, abilities that contribute to household chores, to that which can tear the fabric of reality itself. Stands allow for battles that couldn't be in any other battle series. Chemistry between offensive and defensive stands creating an impenetrable force between two fighters. The weaknesses and specifics of a stand, meaning the main hero one day can be at the mercy of a mere rodent the next. Stands are what make JoJo special, and among the battles in Part 5, that of White Album exemplifies all of these things in most excellence. The specificity of White Album combined with Ghiaccio's intelligence and deadly resolve make for a multi-tiered battle where Ghiaccio can raise the stakes repeatedly. For instance, because he specifically changes temperature rather than merely creating ice, Ghiaccio can just as easily evaporate what he's frozen to turn the tables if need be. And because changing temperatures takes water through the entire cycle of matter, he can turn ice in his armor into oxygen at a rapid enough rate that he has no need for an air hole in his armor, which in turn scratches his one potential weakness that Mista hoped to exploit: White Album is such an amazing encounter because his ability has so many hidden implications and functions that bring this wave of tension every time Mista thinks he's found a weakness. This is the kind of thing that I look for that only Jojo can deliver the way it does. But like I said, the White Album arc isn't just my favorite stand battle, Ghiaccio's my favorite character and he has personality and charisma in spades. Ghiaccio's striking appearance and voice are extremely quick to make an impression, and such a garish voice offset by Ghiaccio's sleek and almost fashionable design is a contrast I really adore. In addition to cantankerous and verbose, Ghiaccio is precise and easily fixates on small scruples that frustrate him in a way that seems pretty gimmicky, but I think suits Ghiaccio as someone detail-oriented and not the sort to leave well enough alone. After all, who else would think of so many ways to utilize a stand like White Album, in such ways as shaping ice armor into fast-moving ice skates, or his most deadly sub-ability, Gently Weeps. Gently Weeps has Ghiaccio freeze the air around him in chunks, surrounding him effectively with invisible shields that most projectiles would bounce right off of. And against a gunslinger like Guido Mista, this is a nightmare. And it's here we learn Ghiaccio's other great ethos, that of resolve. Ghiaccio's hard-boiled nature is a result of his own motivation to keep moving and fighting. If there's a will, there's a way for Ghiaccio, and that's pretty admirable. Also of note is the musical reference behind the title Gently Weeps, derivative of the Beatles song While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Now, a user named Medi Not The Bad Guy has done an amazing series of videos breaking down the design process and musical references behind JoJo characters. And he hasn't done Ghiaccio yet, but I'd be lying if I said his skill for finding these fun serendipities didn't inspire my own digging, so I hope he doesn't mind me sharing my observation as to Gently Weeps. While My Guitar Gently Weeps is one of the Beatles' many popular hits, and the rare occasion of a song written by George Harrison, who is known as the quieter Beatle. He didn't have the same brand of public charisma as Ringo, John, and Paul, and he rarely led or wrote songs exclusively, sans a few exceptions, including While My Guitar Gently Weeps. There's about a million ways you can interpret a song, especially something as poetic as a song by the Beatles, but While My Guitar Gently Weeps is widely thought of as George expressing his frustration at being the Beatle with the least attention and glory to his name. He sings the melancholy feeling of cleaning up after his peers and being left alone with table scraps. And how this ties together is it sounds like something Ghiaccio would say, all in regards to La Squadra's relationship to the rest of the Passione organization. The coup against Diavolo began because La Squadra, most vocally Ghiaccio, felt they were underappreciated and underpaid. They were George, while Diavolo, Pulpo, and all the other higher-ups were the other Beatles. It's a little hard to say since a lot of Ghiaccio's most explicit animosity against them was in anime-exclusive scenes courtesy of David Productions' adaptation, but it's still there in the manga, and I can't help but wonder if that's what Araki was going for. When Gently Weeps comes into play, Mista and Ghiaccio find themselves in a knife-edge death match, in which the loser becomes he who will simply bleed out first. And it's sort of excruciating to imagine, and it's exactly this resolve that Ghiaccio describes. He even compliments Mista for pushing him to the point that he does. It might be hard to take seriously someone as brash as Ghiaccio, but seeing the lengths he'll go to pull out a win, in a situation that leaves him drenched in blood, he more than backs it up, and I respect him bottomlessly. It's here he, for all intents and purposes, beats Mista, but a loose end arrives in the form of Giorno, who Ghiaccio thought he finished off but didn't, and with his stand power more or less expended, there's nothing Ghiaccio can do to stop Giorno from finishing him off in a brutal fashion, killing the last member of La Squadra besides their leader, Risotto. And ultimately, it seems Ghiaccio's undoing wasn't that he was weak or careless, just that he was alone. He had no one to back him up the way Mista did, and with his friends all destroyed and support systems dissolved, he was the one with no one to save him. And this speaks to the themes of Brotherhood within Part 5, but also is just pretty heartbreaking. I can't help but feel bad for the guy. Ghiaccio may be the one stand user among a line that exists to be more or less knocked over like dominoes, but he, in my opinion, stands for everything amazing and unique about the universe of Part 5 and Jojo as a whole, about Araki's talent as a writer of shonen showdowns, and the flair that the Italian setting and La Squadra's Brotherhood brings to Part 5. And for that, he's endlessly special to me. It can sometimes feel a bit like pearls before swine that, in the vast and emotionally impacting world of Jojo, the one I truly attach to is the quirky villain of the week. But Araki poured all the research and thought and influence he did into his characters, and that's the same for Ghiaccio. I think it'd be a shame if he was no one's favorite, and I'm more than happy to be exactly that.